Anything is possible. New freezer, it's a lot of them.
Hey,
Zach, what is up, man?
what is good? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me.
What's going on? How we doing?
I'm just kind of getting prepped for Friday. We got a couple demos today at MMD Shop, so that'll be cool. Also Jam in the Van. Our friends are throwing a live concert that we're gonna have some Artet at. So yeah, it's a good Friday over here. How about you?
Love it, dude. Love it. Not much, man. Hopefully this air quality gets a little bit better. The fires out in Los Angeles or out in California have been crazy.
I
So,
feel you.
yep. Well,
Campfire.
yes. Well, anyway, everyone, this is episode 16. We got Zach Spohler from Artet, incredible company. It's a really unconventional aperitif, first of its kind. He's got it. He's going to show it to us. Have had the luxury of trying it. Incredible product. But Zach, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to dive into this. I think this is, one of the first in the category, and I'm excited to hear your story. So
Appreciate it.
yeah, man. So let's just hop in super high level and casual. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your family. Where did you grow up, and then how did you make your way into the wild world of cannabis?
Definitely. So I am born and raised New York City. I'm actually a triplet. So one of my partners is my triplet brother. My other partner is my cousin. We're a family business. But yeah, I grew up in New York. I kind of was always around people that were looking to be lawyers or bankers. But my grandma was an entrepreneur. My dad was an entrepreneur. And I always kind of was like knew that the kind of traditional path wasn't for me, and I would be more into something more creative where I could align business and creativity.
Were they in what kind of entrepreneurs were they? Were they in food and beverage? Were they in other spaces?
So my grandma actually was in hospitality. She started a luxury travel agency, and was really kind of before her time on that. Luckily had an exit as well, so we got a little granny caught the bag, which is great. and yeah, my dad is in more finance, so he has some BDCs.
Nice, awesome. So you went to college out on the East Coast, or
I went to Northwestern actually.
Oh, you went to Northwestern. And so when you were in college, all your buddies, it sounds like, were going into finance or law. Were you thinking, maybe I'll go that traditional route, go into corporate America, or what made you think, okay, maybe I'm going to try something new and do something different?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think those jobs would have hired me right away. I don't think I was cut out for the iBanking internship. I don't know if they would have wanted me either, to be honest. But I saw I first kind of got involved in college, freshman, sophomore year. I got internships in the kind of like innovation and marketing world in New York. The first one was at a Mother in New York. It's a marketing company that also had like a small venture arm. And there I got to brush up against Sir Kensington's ketchup. And that was kind of the first like inspo that I caught, where I was like, okay, these guys are doing something really cool. This ketchup is really speaking to a lot of people. And filling a new need. And it was kind of my first experience brushing up against some of these CPG guys. The next summer I was able to work also in innovation consulting, where I was brushing up against the matcha bar guys and other people that I kind of look up to. And from there it was kind of like, I saw that path and the ability to kind of innovate for consumers is way more exciting than going the kind of traditional route.
Totally. So you got, two great companies and entrepreneurs. It's funny when you first read about how the market was reacting to Sir Kensington's, everyone's like, who are these guys? They're never going to compete against Kraft Heinz and this massive conglomerate. And then you obviously see a successful exit. And then same with Graham and Max and kind of what they built with Matcha Bar, amazing company to compete with Red Bull and Energy.
Exactly.
So I love it. I had a similar thing where I was exposed to a guy named Jesse Itzler, who was really one of the early investors in Zico coconut water, and seeing him build Zico from the ground up, fell in love with the space. So had a really similar experience.
I love that. Coconut water was also very inspirational for us because a good buddies with Douglas, the founder of Harmless Harvest, who also kind of had a similar, where it was, you know, creating this category that didn't exist. And, you know, a lot of that carries over with something like cannabis beverage.
Totally, totally. So in college, would you say, you know, were you a big fan of cannabis? Like for me personally, I mean, I think it's really gone through this from counterculture to now mainstream. You know, you've seen things like MedMen, Dosist, really incredible commercial applications. But now it's like, you know, it's really started to be accepted as a, you know, an industry standard. So my question would be, what was kind of your experience with CBD or cannabis in college, and what were you starting to see that made you think, maybe there's a unique opportunity to really scale this thing and do something different?
Definitely. I guess just put it out. Yeah, of course. I was definitely smoking a lot of weed in college. Yeah. But what kind of put it in perspective really was, I come from this family from the East Coast. As I said, they love to get together, love to slam bottles of booze. Any excuse to kind of slam bottles of booze is welcome. And then at the same time, I was going back to college and hanging out with my friends and seeing how cannabis was playing a role in our social lives in a way that was not, you know, what I was always kind of told, what I was always taught to expect. You know, if you smoke cannabis, you're going to be lazy. You're not going to get good grades. And once you can kind of, once I was able to be in college, live on my own, and kind of reset my own context in a relationship with cannabis, I was able to see, wait a second, you know, there's something here. There's a bigger cultural shift happening, as you mentioned. And, you know, if I could create something with, you know, if we could create something that is beautiful, consistent, delicious, and elegant, we could maybe start to recontextualize cannabis and, you know, could get my grandma and mom high with me instead of sneaking out behind the, you know, the garage.
I think when you take a step back, like just psychologically, right? And you're like, okay, there are two substances. You have alcohol and you have cannabis. Like they both have certain, you consume them and you have a reaction within your body. But for whatever reason, you know, when cannabis versus alcohol, you know, both, even alcohol went through an era of prohibition. So it was outlawed. Same with cannabis. So it's just funny how culturally, you know, you have such a demonized perspective. And what I love that you guys do, and we'll talk about it later, is you know, kind of vocalizing some of the wrongful convictions and the unfair sentencing that happened with cannabis, as now you can distribute it legally. But bottom line is, you know, they're both substances, and you consume them for entertainment and leisure. And it's important that, you know, people realize that. Like, there's no reason that, like,
we kind of like have this belief that, you know, a good drink doesn't necessarily have to begin with booze. And, you know, if we can give people another option, cannabis option, then, you know, what we find is in a lot of these settings, you have fewer fights, you have fewer, you know, unfiltered comments that are, you know, causing hurt feelings. And it's just about thinking about what and of course we're still in very early days of this, but it's thinking about, humans are so used to getting together and drinking and sipping something. So it's thinking about how that culture is already there, it's already familiar, and how we can kind of bridge cannabis and that culture.
Totally. So you were at Makeable for a while.
Yeah, I was at Makeable. For context, I was at Makeable after college for a year because I loved the team, loved the guys. And my dad was like, you have to get a job. You can't just sell weed.
Right. I love it. But it sounds like, regardless, had that entrepreneurial tendency, and, you know, cannabis was the space for you. Did you meet any early cannabis entrepreneurs that you were like, man, I love this, that like made you flip the switch? What made you quit from Makeable to really going out to do this with your family?
That's a good point. I mean, the main thing is like working for the consulting companies. You know, Makeable would get hired by Fresh Direct, or I don't know what I'm not supposed to disclose, but they would get hired by CPGs, you like big Fortune 500 companies to innovate for them and to kind of do that innovation work. And I got to see under the hood, and I was like, why am I coming up with these ideas and giving them to the person who I actually would rather partner with in the future?
Is it similar to Red Scout in terms of how
Exactly.
Red Scout is an outsourced out innovation?
Precisely, yeah. So like my partner came from Red Scout, my cousin Xander. He was, I'd say the difference with Makeable and Red Scout is Red Scout's very laser focused on branding, whereas Makeable is more product development and product building.
Super cool.
A very similar world. But it was like that same, like, why are we coming up with these ideas to give to, you know, who should be our future partners instead of building it ourselves? I fell out of love with the process of just innovation for the kind of study of it versus just wanting to start building.
Well, you're birthing these ideas, and then you're handing them off to people versus like, you know, finally with Artet. And I think that let's hop into that. So what was the breaking point where you're like, all right, we're going to go do this full time? Did something happen? Like, how did this kick off?
Good question. I mean, it was all such like a flow when you look back at it, but like the idea came up. Someone commented Artet Pops, my mom.
What's up, Mel?
Mel wants Artet Pops. Sorry, what was the question?
The question was, what was like the spark that you're like, we're gonna quit and
go full time? I think when I had the idea, there was that like, wait, in the future, everyone's going to drink cannabis. And once that was in my mind, it was kind of impossible to get it out. So it was more about, like, I had that idea. I then went and I had these jobs. Like, once I had the idea, I went and I got a job part-time in venture capital. I kind of already knew, but like I'd already, you know, my partner Xander at the time was studying the rise of low ABV alcohols, you know, the things like, and zero ABV, things like seed lips and you know, pre-Aperol spritz boom. So like, between my cousin, my brother, and I, we were pretty much on this wavelength. We were going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. But he still had his day job. I was still finishing school. Max was still finishing school. And it was really like, I then decided to go and get smart, get a job at VC, figure out how to fund these things, demystify that whole process, and really just like chat with founders and realize that, you know, they're figuring it out the same way anyone is figuring it out, the same way I would possibly be figuring it out. There was that constant feeling from, you know, that year until the next couple of years of like, this just has to get to market. If I don't do it, someone else will. And I think it was just that drive of just like, if I don't do this, someone else will, that kept it going. I mean, the moment that we all decided to send it, a lot of it just lined up with finding the right partners, the right R&D. I mean, going from a kitchen formula on our you know, in our apartment to an actual production batch. So a lot of it was just timing, I'd say.
So first off, you know, when I see the bottle, the way you market this brand, your Instagram, your content and aesthetic, it's incredible. Like, congratulations, kudos to your team.
Thank you.
One of my favorite cannabis brands is really what you guys have done is incredible. Why aren't there, you know, there's, you know, if you're going to go into CBD, you got Recess and Vibes, there's House, you know, there's a lot of interesting either low ABV, non-alc, or CBD and cannabis. What makes Artet so different with what you guys are doing?
Yeah, we see that world of, you know, the low ABV. We kind of think of it as like we're helping to modernize the bar cart. We want to create. So we see three lanes. We see the seed lip, the non-alcoholic spirit lane. We see the kind of the alcoholic lane, of course, and then there's also the non-alcoholic but also psychoactive lane. So you know, the thing about seed lip is it tastes beautiful. It has the beautiful process, the botanicals, but it doesn't deliver that feeling, which is great for some people. You have the houses, which is great for when you're kind of trying to sip something lighter, and then, you know, things like Artet and Kin play in a space where we are, you know, trying to deliver a feeling, as well as kind of the spirit experience.
And so kin and even, I try Gia, I hope I didn't mispronounce it. Those don't have cannabis. They use other psychoactive ingredients.
Yeah, exactly.
What exactly is in a bottle of Artet for anyone who hasn't heard of the company?
Yes. So Artet, in here we have a blend of botanicals. This is a bit of a mouthful, but we were inspired by Italian liqueurs. So there's a whole bunch of botanicals. There's grapefruit, chamomile, cardamom, juniper, which of course is found in gin, gives you that nice bite. Gentian, which is the kind of bark found in Campari. Allspice, it gives it a little spice. And I think I said them all.
Yeah, and would you say you're more inspired by Aperol or Campari when you mention Italian liqueur?
I like to say Artet is if Campari and Saint Germain had a baby.
Love it. I love that.
So it has a bit of that bite from Campari, but a little bit more of that floral, easy sipping that you're used to in Saint Germain. We really want it to be the base for a cannabis cocktail or something that's nice on the rocks,
Would you recommend drinking it? Do you consume it solo, or do you usually create like a mixed cocktail? What's your go-to?
I like getting funky with it, like creating cocktails, just because like it's such a fun tool to play with. I'll throw a shot into kombucha and just take it on the go.
Nice.
That's like a really fun use case. I personally like mixing it with alcohol because I find that I actually will consume less alcohol and less cannabis if I just have one beautiful cocktail with them both in there. So I like it with mezcal, a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of a soda water. Also, our classic pour is the Tet and Tonic. It tastes a lot like a gin and tonic, but you get a nice microdose of cannabis instead of gin, which will make you sin. So,
love it. So, do you guys see yourselves as an ingredient partner for other potential RTDs? Like, would you partner with a kombucha brand and offer them Artet to infuse into theirs, or are you going to launch RTD cans and extensions that are Artet canned cocktails?
Good question. I don't know if we're leaking that information yet, but
all good, no worries.
But keep an eye out for those types of things. We are in R&D, and it's going to be hitting soon.
Cool.
For the next couple months. But yeah, we see ourselves as exactly. It can be the base. It can be an ingredient to play with. We've been one way we've actually been able to get traction. Obviously there's challenge of introducing this whole new kind of drinking experience to people. And I've been working with bartenders in the local area who are all like, I've been an alcoholic. I kind of am looking to cut down, and this is my art. And I really see the value in creating something that I can still do my art, making beautiful drinks and serving it to people, but also I'm looking to cut down on the booze myself and things like that.
Cool. So let's talk about this. You guys were, in the kitchen, in the lab, making a beta version of Artet. Here's my question to you is, this is a really tough regulatory environment to navigate. Distribution is really limited. You have your product. What do you do next? I mean, how do you even distribute this thing?
That's a good question. Yeah, as you said, the kind of channel restrictions in cannabis are a pain. You can't do a lot of the traditional programmatic ad buying and just Facebook ads that you would be able to do. I'm sure that you're a whiz at this point. That type of stuff we just can't use. So we have to get really creative. It's just pounding the pavement. We started with 3 accounts, just me, my brother, my cousin. We run demos, we show up in person. It's really old school in terms of its grassroots retail.
And these have to be legal cannabis. Like what
we
places,
can only sell
Med Men or like.
Good point. So because of the cannabis regulations, we can only sell. You can only sell the product in the state that it's produced. So we can only sell Artet in California and only through legal California cannabis dispensaries. So that automatically just, puts a gap on kind of our channels and where we can get out there.
So you're not selling in New York retail distribution or any other states? It's
exactly,
just California.
Yeah. We're just Cali.
Interesting. And that's obviously because California is the biggest cannabis market?
Yeah, California. Yeah, we chose California for a couple of reasons. I mean, biggest cannabis market, also just culturally, it's a great place to be.
Got it. So can you talk a little bit about distribution? So you said dispensaries obviously are probably point of distribution number one. How about with like Ease or some of these, direct to consumer flower company? Like, are you working with brands like companies like that for direct distribution?
Yeah, shout out Nadir, shout out smoking and drinking, gang, gang. Um, Working with Ease and those types of people, yeah, we work with partners. I mean, it's a three-tiered system, so it's a little bit more like traditional alcohol. The consumer has gotten a direct to consumer experience, but in the background, we're still selling it through in a three-tier way. So it doesn't really do much to benefit our margins, I guess, but it does a lot to benefit getting the consumer the product, in a nice way.
Awesome. Awesome. And so I guess what I'd ask is what are your thoughts on, this, what I would call there is like this boom and bust of cannabis brands, like the MedMens and the Ignite Cannabises and some of these companies that raise so much money and then, have been dealing with a lot of issues lately. Like, how do you kind of think about that?
I think a lot of that just parallels the boom and bust in the overall market and kind of the way entrepreneurs got ahead of themselves in terms of raising a lot of money and spending a lot of money. And I think, it's easy to look at WeWork and then say, hey, we could do that in cannabis. So I think it just has to do with just the general where we are in the cycle. It's frothy in terms of, ability to raise money. And so I think people are going to be out there taking advantage of that. But in the end, I think there are people in the space building with a much longer term mentality. And I think it's those people that will be able to last. Totally.
Do you ever expect to be selling Artet outside of California? Like, do you think regulatory, will you launch a sister brand that would be in Colorado, or
Yeah.
How does it work?
Exactly. So like we actually have in place, we can scale to every state, but we kind of need infrastructure partners in each state. But the way it works is we can kind of license our IP. Also, hopefully, regulations, keep rolling for us.
Super cool. And what do you think about CBD as a category?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess to kind of rewind, I didn't believe in CBD until I took a CBD dab, like full on dab.
Yeah.
Once I took that, I believed in CBD. I think a lot of the CBD that you have had is not, or the CBD that you buy over the counter is not kind of the same scientific quality. And also a lot of the kind of delivery methods that they use are such that you don't even absorb the CBD. Mm-hmm. So I do believe in CBD. It calms you down, and we are actually, innovating in that space as well. So
awesome.
We see like the whole cannabinoid spectrum as our kind of like as our playing ground and where we want to kind of build out products and experiences to build out the cannabis bar cart.
What do you think about some of the psychedelic innovation as well? Am I pronouncing it right? Mycelium, or how I'm probably butchering
the psilocybin.
Yeah, psilocybin. Yeah.
I'm bullish on all of it, honestly. Plant power.
Yeah.
We just got the first psilocybin public company today. So that's a big deal. And I think it's just the start. I'm good friends with the people at Double Blind. They have a magazine. So when you see the culture aligning with some of the public markets, things are going in the right direction.
Super cool. Super cool. So what would you tell any other founders or entrepreneurs trying to break into cannabis right now, especially with when you have that frothy boom previously, and then you have a ton of companies doing edibles or flower or whatnot? What would you recommend they look into before jumping into the space?
It's a good question. I mean, I think you have to be really laser targeted on the consumer and who you want to serve. Because while there are lots of money in the space, a lot of big public multi-state operators that are throwing things against the wall to try, it's hard to compete with, similarly to, you with Dream Pops, the ability to build a community online. And that's something that it's just, big companies can't really, it's harder for big companies to do that. I think that's one thing. And then it's also just thinking about the regulations and the restrictions and the best way to kind of put your toe in, because it is really complicated, the 3-tier system, honestly.
Is it still an all cash business if you're trying to do anything cannabis related, or are there ways to like work in banking? And
that's a whole nother pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I have definitely picked up my fair share of cash, and yeah, it's mostly still done in cash, but there are lots of good softwares entering the space that are formalizing POS systems and things like that. So checks are becoming more common and things like that.
Totally. Super interesting, man. I mean, I think it's still very early, in the space, but it's very exciting. I will say I haven't seen a lot of, like, I've seen RTD cocktails and I've seen edibles and Kiva and other brands, but I think the one thing you guys have nailed is just product, like in terms of how amazing the product tastes, but also the execution of the packaging and the brand. The last thing I'll kind of touch on is, as you're building out this company, where do you expect, where would you like to envision Artet going, and what kind of what's really your company's mission with this business? And I think that might tie into I love how you guys are really trying to be advocates for some of the wrongful convictions that have happened in cannabis previous. You look at cannabis related crimes, nonviolent crimes over the last 10, 20, 30 years. I think that's kind of powerful, but curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of like my personal initial drive to do all this was I do love the plant, and I did want to challenge some people's perceptions about the plant. I think it's important for brands to stand, clearly from the start, stand behind what they believe in. And, for us, cannabis justice is racial justice. And so it's important for brands to be abundantly clear from the start about what their values are. We hope to, have a bigger and bigger impact. Obviously, our number one goal is to get Artet onto every bar cart. But beyond that, we want to, have a positive impact on the industry and on society. We believe cannabis is, a great plant. And then we also want to, we believe people shouldn't be incarcerated. So we are doing everything we can. We are working with a company called The Last Mile. A goal of ours is to set up our own kind of training program. What The Last Mile does is they work with incarcerated individuals to kind of re-educate and train them to get back into the workforce. So we are looking to set up in our tech specific, maybe cannabis specific program with The Last Mile. That's just one thing that's kind of on our plate.
I love it, man. Well, Zach, I obviously really appreciate you making the time. I know it's a busy Friday, but as I said, a big fan over here, what you guys are building, big supporter. And, we'll make sure to keep an eye out as you guys keep doing a great job. So
thanks a lot. I'll make sure to keep you well watered with the bevs. Make sure you're not too thirsty over there. And yeah, we have some new things we're working on. I'll make sure to keep you posted on that too.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for making the time. Talk soon.
Cheers, man.